RA-Tor radium fertilizer. Soil properly treated with RA-Tor radium fertilizer will double the crop yield and improve the flavor and general showiness of plants of all kinds. Trees, flowers, shrubs, and lawns show a marked increase in glossy, luxuriant growth. Read what able scientific investigators say of this wonderful plant stimulant. The idea of using radium, the most precious of all substances, as a fertilizer at first thought seems strange and illogical. Such a use has not become common because of the great scarcity of radium. Its beneficial stimulating effect on plant growth, however, has been established by repeated, scientifically conducted tests. A quantity of radium so small that if separated in pure state would be invisible to the unaided eye, properly disseminated over 1 acre of ground, will double the plant yield. It is a well-known fact that the energy of radium is 300,000 times greater than any other substance. Soil, water, and air are all slightly radioactive. The penetrating cosmic rays are universally present, and it is becoming more and more evident that radioactivity is the mainspring of life, the vital spark. A potted bulb, kept in the dark, rots and dies, but under the influence of radium in total darkness, it develops and blooms. Many scientists the world over have attested to the stimulating effect on plant growth. Dr. Charles Stewart Geiger says, "The rays of radium act as a stimulus to protoplasm. Acceleration of growth indicates stimulation between a minimum and optimum point." Professor Rowe of the Pasteur Institute of Paris and Professor Butler Burke of Cambridge University greatly stimulated plant growth by the use of radium. Bedford and Bright of the Harvard Medical School found seeds exposed to radium were far more vigorous. The classic research work in this subject was conducted by Dr. Julius Stocklasa, director of Chemical Physical Institute of Prague. With a corps of able assistants and exceptional facilities over a period of 7 years, he found that large amounts of radium were toxic but small amounts greatly stimulating. That formation of starch and plant activity, even to blossoming, went forward in the dark, that the sugar content increased, making finer quality fruits, and also that radium greatly increased the activity of nitrogen, fixing the bacteria in the soil, and a resilient increase in plant food of 32% to 76%, a fact of tremendous importance. Dr. Stocklasa states, "All our researches point to the fact that radium emanations with a low activity favorably increase the karyokinesis of the cell. The entire development of the plant, the mechanism of metabolism, the photochemical assimilation in the chlorochima, bud formation, and finally fructification. The germination of seeds was increased from 70% to 130%. Drying and weighing 2 sets of plants, one treated with and one treated without radium, after 48 days growth, the radiated plants showed an increase of over 200% in peas, 100% in beans and lupines, and nearly 900% in barley." The United States Professor H. Rusby, Dean of the College of Pharmacy of the Columbia University, has done some very exciting work conducting careful tests with radium fertilizer on a 100-acre farm in Ohio and 2-acre plot in New Jersey. Exact measurements against control plots where no radium was used showed increase in the radium fertilized plants as great as 129% in New Jersey and 135% in Ohio. Using 100 pounds of radium fertilizer to the acre on the larger farm, the average increased yield over several varieties of crops was 64.7%. Professor Rusby says, "The quality of the radium growth vegetables was a matter of special comment by all who tasted them, and this proved true of all vegetables raised elsewhere under the same treatment. The effect of the radium fertilizer on a second crop on the same ground was greater than on the first." The earliest effects of radium to increase the root growth, often the stem growth will be retarded for a time, but will later undergo a greater acceleration. Perhaps the most important effect of the radium was that of improving the edible properties of the products. Potatoes were more mealy. Root crops were remarkably tender, sweeter, and of finer flavor. Beets, carrots, sweet corn, and similar vegetables were markedly sweeter. Tomatoes were also sweeter, and chemical analysis showed them to contain less water and more sugar. Radium-grown string beans and peas were particularly fine flavor. It is to be noted that long grasses have particularly benefited because of the special activity of radium on young growing leaf tissue. All observers have remarked the improvement in the showiness of flowers, their coloring, texture, and luxuriant flowering, and rich glossy foliage so increases their loveliness as to make them appear by contrast as new sorts. From other authoritative sources, splendid results have been reported in treating the citrus fruits with radium. These trees hold their set of fruit better and the flavor is decidedly richer. The foliage has a glossy, lively look, and the trees are more vigorous and healthy than trees in the same grove where no radium was used. Fig trees treated with radium fertilizer bore more fruit, and came in earlier than trees with the same orchard not so treated. Melons with radium fertilizer were finely flavored, matured earlier, and were strong and luxuriant in growth. Much of the good effect of radium fertilizer is doubtless due to its catalytic action and the quickening of feeble natural soil disintegration processes. It comes under the heading, then, of a chemical fertilizer and does not replace such fertilizers as manure and straw, which are needed for soil leavening. Radium fertilizer may be applied at any season of the year, when it is possible to get it well into the ground. One application is sufficient for all time. If it is done right and the soil is not washed badly, it should be placed a foot deep in the garden soil and 1 to 3 feet deep around fruit and ornamental trees. The best method for applying RA-Tor radium fertilizer must be determined by the user in any given set of circumstances. No fixed rule can apply in all cases. Two things must be borne in mind, however, to ensure success. First, do not use a larger amount than is recommended. Overradiation is harmful. Second, a perfect dissemination through the soil is all important. Do not mix the fertilizer in the soil carelessly. Clods and lumps may be broken up in order to mix the fertilizer evenly. Remember, you are using the most highly energized substance in the world, and it must be used sparingly. To save transportation costs, this fertilizer is sold in a highly concentrated form and should be thoroughly mixed with the same weight of fine, dry sand before placing in the soil, as the amounts used are so small to permit the ease in properly disseminating it. Garden plots, lawns, and fields radiated to a depth of 1 foot require 100 pounds of RA-Tor radium fertilizer to the acre. 1 pound of fertilizer is sufficient to treat a garden plot 20 feet square. Citrus and other fruit trees fully grown require more than other crops because of deeper radiation. Use from 1 to 2 pounds to each tree according to the size. The most efficient method of radiating trees is to make rings of holes around each tree, starting at a distance of 18 inches from the trunk, to a depth of 2 or 3 feet. Place a very small amount of fertilizer in each hole, wash it well down with a cup of water, and fill in with earth, tamping lightly. Continue in this manner, always staggering the holes so they disseminate the fertilizer at different depths, and as evenly as possible throughout the whole block of soil surrounding the tree. These holes can be made with a crowbar. Make the first circles 3 feet deep if possible, the second one's 2 feet, and the third circle of holes only 1 foot deep. All potted plants, and especially those excluded from bright sunlight, should be treated with RA-Tor radium fertilizer. The following manner. Prepare fresh soil and carefully radiate it with fertilizer. Transplant the plants into this radiated soil, allowing all old soil clinging to the roots to remain undisturbed. Use 2 grams, about a small thimbleful of RA-Tor radium fertilizer to a cubic foot of soil, mixing thoroughly. We make up a beautiful device for activating all water plants placed in lily ponds, quiet pools, or aquariums. They vitalize and renew the chemical life-giving properties, stimulating plants to a new beauty. Fish thrive and are greatly benefited by these activated waters, as radium stimulates all life, both plant and animal. The prices vary according to the diameter of the pool to be activated. A device for a pool 10 feet in diameter will cost $5 and last for hundreds of years. RA-Tor radium fertilizer is sold in 1, 5, 10-pound bags at $1.25 per pound, and in 50 and 100-pound bags at $1 per pound. Transportation prepaid. Do not experiment with inferior substitutes whose radioactivity is due to short-lived thorium products. Insist on the genuine RA-Tor radium fertilizer with guaranteed radium content. Manufactured only by the RA-Tor Mining and Manufacturing Company in their own laboratories at their radium mines near Tyrone, New Mexico. They also produce the famous RA-Tor plaque for medicinal use, and RA-Tor Beauty Clay, the new scientific beautifier. Right for literature. RA-Tor Mining and Manufacturing Co., Tyrone, New Mexico.